against it on the floor. And the other portion of your question dealt with?
I can read it again. Do you support allowing charter schools to use the permanent school fund to guarantee construction bonds?
No, I do not. And here's why. First off, it's a private entity that makes application. Their finances have to be in place. The money that belongs to the people of Texas in the permanent school fund isn't for them. No, I don't agree with that.
You have 2 minutes to answer this question. During the Social Studies Curriculum Standards Review in 2009-2010, the State Board of Education voted to make changes which some considered to be controversial. Do you support the changes made or not, and why?
Well, I'm one of the people that actually went and looked, being an educator, I went and looked at those changes, and I actually created a little lesson for myself and took them. First off, I want to say that I was not a member of that board. I want to make that clear. That was a different board altogether. One of the changes, let me just go through very quickly. One of the changes, I have 2 minutes here. One of the changes was to have the student in the social studies class contrast Abraham Lincoln's first inaugural address and his second inaugural address and his Gettysburg address with the inaugural address of Jefferson Davis in the Confederacy. Now, as a matter of pedagogy, that's not a bad lesson. But if you read the 3 speeches and the 1 speech over here, it makes more sense as an educator that it should have been a 1-to-1 contrast, not a 3-to-1 contrast. It would have made more sense. So these kind of technical changes we could take a look at. Now, I can tell you this. That's not going to happen. I'll be perfectly frank with you. It's not going to happen in the next session of the State Board of Education. For any item to be brought up that has already been voted on, has to be approved by the chairman, and I can tell you that the chairman of this board is not going to do it. I don't think I would support bringing it up at all. I see no point in revisiting that because we have the text, we're getting the new books, we're too far down the road, I think, to take a look at that. If we want to take a look at it again in 5 or 6 years when it's time, okay, we can do it.
You have 1 minute to answer this question. Do you favor English immersion or bilingual education? Okay,
good question. Now, I had to learn this after 14 years in the Dallas Independent School District with a huge population of Spanish-speaking students. In the early days of my being in the classroom, I thought bilingual education was probably a good thing. And at that time, it was pre-K through 3rd. It has since moved pre-K through 5 and beyond the 5th grade. But what I've discovered is the teachers don't pay any attention to that whatsoever. I go by 9th and 10th grade classrooms and hear algebra being taught in Spanish. And it didn't take me long to realize this is a big mistake. Here's another reason it's a mistake. When kiddos take the tax test and they're writing essays, all that's done in English, and it's excruciating to read some of them. So I can tell you that immediate immersion into English is what I would support. That's what we need.
Okay, you have 2 minutes to answer this question. What part of the TEKS, Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, covers sex education? At what age level is it taught? Do you agree with it? If you don't agree with this, what would you change? Well,
it really begins at the secondary level, primarily. I have been looking at the TEKS on sex education and in the health area. And what I've discovered as an English teacher, I've gone through and made some changes, but I've corrected all the grammar that is currently printed in it. Let me tell you something. A couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, the nurse at North Dallas High School came into my office and sat down and very chagrined, and I, what's wrong? She said, Mr. Clayton, she said, there are 113 pregnancies in this building. That was in April of a school year about 3 years ago. 113 pregnancies. I know in the building I am right now, there's something like 20 pregnancies. So sex education really should be at home. But if it's not going to be at home and the public has to deal with it, and when you have 113 pregnancies in a high school, the public is dealing with it, then I think we should teach abstinence, and we should teach it at as early an age as we possibly can, which we would consider decent for the classroom. Because by the time these young ladies and these young men are in the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, they're making their own decisions, and they're often the wrong decisions. So if they're not going to get the guidance at home, we're going to have to provide it somewhere in the school. But it should be very narrowly focused. Abstinence is the ticket as far as I'm concerned. And as I said, as decent an age as possible is where we should start it.
You have 2 minutes to answer this question. What is the importance of teaching the Magna Carta, U.S. Constitution, Bill of Rights, private property rights, and private business ownership?
Well, what is the importance of all of that? Well, of course, I believe in education there are no disconnects. And if you try to make any disconnects on the documents or the philosophies that you've just spoken about, it's going to be a hard thing for you to do. We don't do that enough, I can tell you factually. It's in the standards, but if you come with me and go around to some of the social studies classrooms that I visit, what you're going to more likely hear is lectures on the virtues of socialism versus capitalism. It's always one or the other. It's only fair. It's that kind of thing. You're going to hear Marxist indoctrination in the classrooms, and most of this is coming from teachers, certainly not from the standards. If you read the social studies standards, everything that you just talked about is outlined, and it's repetitive in those standards. But the teachers will ignore it, especially some of our more liberal teachers, and trust me, ladies, we have a bunch of them. If we graduate students without a full knowledge of the items you've talked about, we're not doing anything but hurting the future of our country. They have to understand that there is an exceptional aspect to everything you've just said. And if you think socialism is better than capitalism, then I tell you what you should do. You should take a visit to the capitalist free enterprise zones in communist China, because that's where their wealth is coming from. The hypocrisy is overwhelming there. So our students need to understand exactly what that is and understand it well.
Thank you. You have 2 minutes to answer this question. Several North Texas superintendents representing the North Texas Regional Consortium recently sent a letter to the State Board of Education and the governor with concerns about standardized testing. In the letter they discussed, quote, relentless test preparation and boring memorization of In the letter they discussed, quote, relentless test preparation and boring memorization of facts, close quote. Do you agree with the low opinion of memorization, which is sometimes called drill and kill, that is common among many educators? If yes, why? If no, why not?
Well, yes, I agree with everything that the superintendents have said. In fact, so much so that next week, when the state board meets, I have arranged for the Committee on Instruction, which I'm chairman, to hold hearings on this very issue. And the public, it's open to the public. Teachers, members of the public, educators, non-educators are free to come down and deliver their 3-minute speech. I will hold that meeting open for as long as it takes for everybody to speak. Now, that's a state board member talking. Now here's an educator talking. It has taken over the classroom, standardized testing, especially at the secondary level. I can't tell you how many pull-outs Saturday schools are set up, how many kids are pulled out of art classes, band, choir, to do remedial education in English, math, science, social studies, it doesn't matter. Now with the EOC, it's a subject-specific exam, so they're going to be pulled all the time. The teachers are constantly badgered to make sure that the kiddos are going to make that minimum scale score, which is currently on taxes 2,100. Or the teacher suffers, the students suffer, the schools suffer, the districts suffer. It's a minimum standards test. And we've allowed minimum standards to become the foundation of our education in Texas. I'm asked all the time, Mr. Clayton, why does Texas rate so low in education in almost every category? 45, 46. You can't expect anything different if your foundation is minimum standards. That's what you're going to get. The very lowest possible scores are going to keep you at the bottom, and that's what we have in this state. So it needs a close look, a close look. and probably a complete revamping of the entire system.
You have 2 minutes to answer this question. What does the current TEKS, Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, say about evolution and creationism? Do you agree with the current standards, and if not, how should they be changed?
Well, of course, this is a really, really big subject, and I have tried to kind of negotiate a balance in this. Now, when I was in high school, I was taught about evolution, and if you go open a 10th or 11th grade, I believe, biology book, I should have brought one with me. Right in the center of it is a blue section with about 10 blue pages, and you open it up, and it's the theory of evolution. And it starts out by saying the theory of evolution in that textbook. But what a lot of the teachers will tell you, well, that's a scientific theory, not a philosophical theory. So, which means it's a matter of fact. But yet there are so many questions out there. So my suggestion is this: having a major in philosophy, I know that Aristotle, Socrates, and many of the pre-Socratics talked about this issue 4,000 years ago. What they called it was argument from design. And all these men did was just look around and say, well, there's so much order in the universe, there must be a reason for this. Now, theirs was not theological, it was philosophical. But it was apparent to them, given the order of the very plants that are growing, or the very orbits of the earth around the sun, or the universe, the entire universe, that there was something greater than. So my suggestion was, we're going to have this scientific theory of evolution to partner that with a philosophical discussion of an argument from design, so that the students can see the two concepts side by side. One is entirely philosophical, one is entirely scientific. But remember this: science without philosophy would not exist. It's the philosophers who have always asked the questions that the scientists have attempted to answer. I'm not convinced they have thoroughly answered the evolution question.
You have 2 minutes to answer this question. 45 states have adopted the Common Core Standards, which is a set of K through 12 curriculum standards developed by a group of national organizations and supported by the federal government. States who adopt Common Core are being granted waivers from meeting certain No Child Left Behind NCLB goals. States who do not adopt Common Core may be penalized with the loss of Title I federal money for low-income districts. Do you support adoption of the Common Core standards in Texas? If yes, why? If not, why not? And how would you address the consequences of non-adoption?
Well, I know that there are a lot of districts out there that would like to have those waivers. But what they have to realize is they get the waiver from Washington, D.C. because they've adopted the Common Core standards. Washington, D.C. is going to control that district, not the local elected officials. Look, all this is an attempt, and I'm just going to say the man's name, of the Obama administration trying to take control of local education. That's all it is. And all of the other words that she used, waivers and all those kinds of things, that's just part of the dressing on the package. Because it's just a direct attempt. Unfortunately, a lot of the school districts and states have fallen into this. But there are reports out there that many of the states and the districts are now trying to get out of it because the red tape is unbelievable and they're losing control of education. No, I'm not in favor of Common Core standards whatsoever, at all. In fact, I would like to abolish the Department of Education. And hopefully if I'm made Secretary of Education under one of the Republican administrations, everybody's coming up, I'll be able to do that. That will be my goal. Get it out of get the government out of the education business. It's not good at it.
Okay. You have 1 minute to answer this question. Should all history and government courses be required to reinforce the factual differences between a pure democracy and a pure Republican form of government?
Well, yes, there wouldn't be any, I have no objection to that. A pure democracy is really a direct democracy, if that's what you mean. It's always a direct vote of the people in every issue. A Republican form of government, you have elected representatives who do that for you. It has served this country well for many, many years. Many, many years. I wouldn't want to change that, but For the students to understand the difference between those two things, I would have no objection to that. But I would also like them to understand that the Republican form of government